Why is it so hard to get a ride right now? This is ridiculous. What is this 888 ride? Let me try this out.
Hey, Deeb, you need a ride?
Tuchman, what are you doing here? Times are tough for poker commentators these days.
Shaun Deeb, folks. 6-time World Series of Poker bracelet winner, World Series of Poker Player of the Year, and officially the toughest person to get in an 888 ride. Why are you so hard to get in this car?
Because when I'm away from my family, I try to work. And I don't come to the West Coast, so you don't come to the East Coast enough.
I come to the East Coast all the time. Okay, where are we going?
Wait, you come to the East Coast all the time and you never reach out and say, hey, let's get together, let's have our kids hang out?
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. Okay, so where are we going today?
We're gonna go to Frank Casella's house. One of my closest friends. He came to visit me. He helped me out when I need a favor. He's always been there for me. I'm basically his 10th son. You know, he's on his 3rd wife, and he finally did it right. No offense to his other ex-wives, if they see this. I like them both, but no, you know, it's great to be out here, not during the series for once, so I can get together and see some friends, because during the series I played too much damn poker. I don't get to socialize nearly as much with people that, you know, I've been so close with over the last 20 years of my career.
So you bring up Frank Casella, 2010 World Series of Poker Player of the Year. You won that award in 2018, years after you, quote unquote, retired from poker.
I retired from tournament poker, I think was my, well, yeah, I took like a whole month off when I was like 24, 25 years old. I was totally burnt out, you know. First 7 years of my career, I think I had on average about 3 to 4 days off per year. Like, even when I was traveling to poker tournaments, I'd be playing online, playing cash games in the airport, on the plane. I was such a addictive person when it comes to that stuff, on playing and putting in volume. I loved every single day I played, so I played so much poker those years. So it took a while till I figured out how to rewind a little bit and take some days off, and, you know, but it was the glory days. Like, you look back upon that, and I'm so glad I played as much as I did, because I got a lot better, made a lot of money, and made some of the greatest like social circle you ever could in this industry.
Okay, so I'm going to put the Player of the Year question I had on the back burner for a second, because you brought up your work ethic, almost obsessive to a point where maybe it was unhealthy. I remember meeting you in Kiev many, many years ago. And you were...
Was that the first time we met, was Kiev?
First time we met was in Kiev. You talked about my good buddy Bart Hansen, and you were like, oh, I love Bart, and we're like, and we talked, and then you and I went and got some food, and you were telling me, I was like, hey, so what is, I was like, what do you do right now? And he was like, well, I'm playing this live tournaments, and then I'm going to go back to my hotel room, and I'm going to 24 table online. And I was like, wait, what? And I remember watching you. You were like, just watch. And I was blown away. I couldn't understand how, first of all, if I didn't even have decisions to make, just pressing 24 different buttons would be difficult for most human beings. You were making decisions, and good ones at that.
So back then, I was actually up to 40 tabling, and
40?
most people like assumed I had like multiple monitors and this. I did this all on a laptop with a touchpad.
True story. I saw this. Well, I saw 24, but still, I don't know how you did it.
So I always love when I'm, you know, years later, as I got more known and got friends with some of the industry people, I met some of the early Stars employees. I went to one of the meetings that Esai and PokerStars put on of players to do player relations and talk about the industry and the ecosystem and just get some player feedback. And so I went there, and one of them was saying one of their favorite bits of data is they had like this chart, and it showed the number of players active and how many tables each were playing. And like 80% were one tabling, like 15% were two, like 4% were four. And all the way to the right, there was one little blip of 40 tables, and they go, there's Shaun. Like, I was the first massive multi-tabler in online poker. And I don't know what about me, maybe it's just my ADHD. Like, I used to do speed math competitions as a kid. I process information very quickly. I talk quickly, and I just kept hitting register. And I timed out way less than almost anyone I know back then. I made my decisions quickly. I have a great memory on players and frequency. So like I could have told you every player, how they played, what hands we played against each other. You know, oh, we made this final table. Oh, I 5-bet him. Oh, he did this to me. Like I had such great, you know, instincts of player history.
So were you able to actually play exploitable poker and make moves against certain players, even 40 tabling?
Yeah, I was making drastic range differences versus different people. Like I knew who was tight, I knew who was loose, I knew like the 3-bet and 4-bet, and you know, there was a couple times where I took shortcuts. Like now looking back on poker, what we know now, I did a ton of 4-bet shoving because everyone was 3-betting too many bluffs, and I 3-bet shoved out of the big blind a lot, and I open shoved a lot for larger stacks than most people were doing.
Nobody did that back then.
There was a few people doing, but not the frequency I was doing. And I realized that I was simplifying my decisions. So like years later, the sit and go players started doing that. And I remember like the guy, George A7, one of the Supernova elites, was like, there was an interview where he was mentioning something about like, I do this, I do that, and I wait to this stack depth. And like that was stuff intuitively I just stumbled upon. Like I did everything trial and error. Like the volume I got in hands those first few years of my career, I was playing millions of hands when most people were playing 100,000 hands. So I saw 5x, 10x, you know, 20x the hands that most people saw. I had so many final table and shorthanded situations that when, as my career progressed in like the big field tournaments, you're making more and more final tables, I end up having so much more knowledge of heads up, 300, 400, ICM, and all these things that most people were not as comfortable with. So they were playing for life-changing money for them at the time. And I was just like, I've done this before. And I never really cared what stakes I was playing. I would be playing.
How old were you when you started?
Poker or online?
Online. When
The
you
day I
this?
turned 18.
The day you turned 18.
The day I turned 18, I
You
made
just
a
jumped
party
in.
poker account. Yeah.
I had Brian Rastin at 8-8 Ride a few years ago, and he talked about online poker. And he said he thinks online poker is in trouble because of, you know, solvers, GTO.
This had to be pre-COVID though.
It was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
He said GTO and solvers and all this stuff, and he goes, I didn't get into poker so I could play chess, you know. And if you missed that 8-8 Ride, it's available on our YouTube channel. Check it out. Brian Rast is amazing. Future Hall of Famer now. Poker Hall of Famer.
I was gonna say not future Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second too.
I know we're getting, because I almost brought it up with the Isai thing, you know, because I think Isai personally is the biggest snub for the Poker Hall of Fame in the history of our industry. It is a joke.
You might get in before Isai.
If I do, I will. If I know Daniel's campaigning for him every single year, I literally will say, you guys do not have a pulse. Understand the pulse of this industry, to not know the reason we are here, the reason why poker is still respected, why poker is still trustworthy. Isai saved this industry so many times, and he is such a great man.
Talk about poker today in terms of online poker. Obviously, you said post-COVID.
Yeah.
But are you worried with the solvers, with you know, real-time
Assistance.
Yeah. Thank you, and you know, and cheats out there, and we've had some cheats outed, and I'm sure there are plenty of cheats that are not outed.
I've been a part of many of those outings. One of my
Right.
favorite things in the industry from early on in my career was to call out the scumbags and try to clean up the industry. But I think that, you know, those things are a concern, but the players have done a great job of doing it. The sites have made such an effort to curtail that stuff. And I think COVID showed that convenience for poker is great. You don't understand how many people I've met, because the numbers are booming everywhere. Tournaments, online, everything is doing great in poker, and it should, because it's an amazing industry. It's amazing, intellectual sport. It's amazing to gamble and have a chance to have life-changing money.
Is it a sport?
It's a mental sport for sure.
Mental sport. Okay.
You know,
I'm not going to get into the whole sport thing. It's your take.
I know,
like
because you play hockey, you think that's a real sport. You know.
No. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just listen. You think it's a sport? It's fine. It's not worth it. It's not worth an argument about. Okay. You and I go way back.
Yeah, but we have argued many a times, and we've done a lot of stuff in the booth.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think that.
Are you concerned or not?
No, I think online poker is getting better and better every single time. I don't love that people have switched to the private clubs and the apps, because I think security is a lot more lacking. But every year, new states are being regulated, new sites are coming, new security features, and it's always going to be a cat and mouse game. I mean, I always make this comparison to people outside of poker is whatever industry they're from, so there's shady people in your industry. If you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you're in real estate, you're in construction, there's scumbags wherever there is money to be made.
Yeah, poker commentators.
Yeah, I mean,
Jeff Platt is I don't even want to say it.
By the way,
I don't even want to say it, but we have some poker commentators that maybe are less than.
I hope you know how I almost ended Jeff Platt's career this year.
You should have. You should have. Somebody needs to do it.
I started the whole Jeff Platt jinx, and then
Right.
Wyman ran with it. And the fact that I saw the coverage recently, and Dan's company gave a cease and desist letter from a lawyer that Jeff is not allowed to be near a restraining or whatever, like order protection.
It was perfect. It was just so perfect.
I felt bad for Jeff because he just was done with interviews. Dan was not going to do an interview with him, and weird, Dan won the main event because he knew from day 3 on, avoid Jeff Platt at all costs. We had talked about it every single night, and we told Jeff to stay away. It was so great, and it couldn't have been a more fitting thing to that narrative that the one person who was avoiding Jeff the most was the only person who didn't get knocked out of the tournament.
Coincidence, or is there more to it, Jeff?
No.
By the way, if you've missed the Jeff Platt interview, we had him on 8-A-Day Ride about a month ago. So
He should have been the driver, not the ride.
I know, right?
He's going to be the one driving these things, you know. By the way,
he's been working
the
a
only
lot,
thing he's
though.
worse at commentary is poker.
Wow. Fires. Shots fired. I love it. Hey, you brought up Dan Wyman. Reigning World Series Poker main event champion, a worthy champion, and a good friend of yours. Talk about him for a second.
So currently this stage of my poker career, Dan is my best friend in poker, has been for many years. We met at a final table many years ago. And my interaction with him just shows our humor and how much I knew I was going to like him right away. So we're at the 10K pot limit hold'em final table. Notables are ADZ was there, rest in peace, Phil Ivey, Andy Frankenberg, myself, Ali from LA who plays Badoogie,
Right.
and like Sam Stein, and me and Sam are good friends. And Dan's this young kid with like a mullet with a trucker hat. And this is back when they used to do the written player bios. And they're like, he's like 23 years old, Dan Wyman, 23 years old, and former lumberjack. And I look at him, I said, who runs that bluff? And he just started laughing. And so then he leans in like a few minutes later and he says, hey, who's that black guy? So I just started cracking up. I was like, you're pretty funny. And then, later on, the next year or two, Open-Face became popular. We started playing. This is the one thing that I'm so mad at.
Open-Face Chinese.
Open-Face Chinese. This is the one thing about Dan that I'm so mad that World Series didn't mention. Dan isn't even, the most famous thing Dan's done is not winning the main event. He created Fantasyland.
Really?
For anyone who's played Open-Face, Dan is the one who created that and popularized it.
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, everybody's played that.
I know, everyone's played. Like, it is so, I've told him, I was like, you need to tell everyone. Like, every time I meet someone, I'm like, this is what Dan did. I'm like, his mind is so sharp. He's so creative. We've come up with so many different variants of poker, me and him. It's something we love to do when we hang out. It's just come up with stupid things and more ways to make it more gambly and flippy.
When I talk to people about poker, I always say, to me, what defines a great poker player is when I grew up, I sat around the kitchen table with my buddies and we played different games. And I would say at least 33% of the games were invented right on the spot. And it was a matter of, okay, who's the sharpest to pick up the new game? And when I bring this up and I say, hey, the people that are going to pick up those games the fastest are the ones who are the best poker players, okay? I feel like most anybody with a lot of work can probably specialize in one game, one variant. But when I always bring up your name. I go, if Shaun Deeb, if they invented a game, Shaun Deeb would have it mastered in 20 minutes. And I guess, is that you and Dan Wyman? That's just, I put like Seaver in the same category.
I was going to say, I would say it's between myself and Seaver as the two guys who probably are the best at when a obscure game is brought up, who will become the best. Like, I will not be the best in the first 12 hours, but I will experiment. I talk about early in my career with trial and error is how I did everything. Any game, I will try some stuff, and my best skill is my observation and mimicking style. So, like, how I learned mixed game is when I was playing 8-game on Stars, whoever I thought was the best Raz player, say it was like CG or someone else at that time, I watched every hand they played of Raz versus everyone in the ranges and try to be like, what is he doing in Raz? Okay, I'm going to do that in my game.
Did you do anything besides poker? I mean, between playing poker and traveling for poker, and then your form of studying for poker, you just consumed by this sport?
This, yeah, it pains you to say that.
It does.
I can hear it in your tone how much it bothers you to say it. No, yeah, that's exactly. I only think about poker. That for the first 10 years of my life, I didn't think about investments. I didn't think about anything. I didn't care about, what relationship I was in, who I was dating at the time. That was not important to me. I only thought about poker. It's the only thing I wanted to do. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I think it's something that is so great for people to learn, and the skill set of that, it just overlaps with so many things. There's a reason why so many successful businessmen later, after they've been successful, get into poker, because it's the same thing. You're every day. You think you're so good now, in a year you're like, I can't believe I thought I was good back then. And that's what I love about this game. It's always elevating itself.
Yeah, that's the quote Jason Kuhn said to me when he did commentary with me during the World Series of Poker. And Jason Somerville, there were so many great poker players that used to come in the booth with me. And I am so grateful that you guys took the time to do it. It was amazing for me as a commentator and as a player. And obviously all for the fans, it was just what a treat. But I remember Jason Kuhn came in and he said, if you didn't think you sucked at poker 6 months ago, you're not working hard enough. And it always stuck with me. And I think it's true in all aspects of life, whether you're a basketball player, whether you're an investor, whatever it is, if you stop learning, you're dead.
And that's what I tell my wife all the time. Like, when I'm trying to get away, I'm like, I don't have the time to study. I'm not good at studying. I'm going to get passed by at the game. And the worst thing about poker is when you get passed by and become a losing player, it's going to take you a long time to realize it. So many people are convinced they're just running bad or this or that. Like, it's so hard to be objective, especially when it comes to tournaments, because the variance is so massive.
Okay, so you're experimenting, and I want to get into all these different aspects of your life. It's such an interesting story. When you're experimenting and you watch the best Raz player, and you're like, okay, I'm going to just try this stuff, and I'm going to experiment. How did you know what worked, what didn't work, and how were you able to separate that from results-oriented thinking?
So I would just kind of say, like, all right, this guy just always seems to calm me down. So they think I'm a maniac. They think I do this. So, like, there's so much of adjusting and readjusting. That's the psychology of poker, where solvers just struggle with, because their poker is an emotional game. And there are no poker players out there right now who can be completely emotionless. You tell me the best in the world, Ike Haxton, Jacun, Ivy, Negreanu, anyone, they still have emotion. They try to suppress it the best they can, but it's still there. And they're still gonna be like, wow, this guy seems like he's attacking me or exploiting me here, or man, he's really done this. You don't know the frequency they're actually doing it. You have to extrapolate so much out of such a small sample size. And that will still always be in poker. And no matter what, there will always be someone new trying something. I had a conversation actually with Jason Somerville, who you mentioned yesterday, because he was there when I was filming for Poker Night in America. He ended up joining the game, and we were talking about PLO tournaments. I've had amazing results in PLO tournaments. I think I'm one of the best in the world at that.
That was your first bracelet, 2015, right?
No, that was Parliament Hold'em.
Parliament Hold'em, who plays that?
Me and Dan Wyman. That's how we became friends. That final table was not the one I won, by the way.
By the way, didn't you get all your chips in that Parliament Hold'em tournament, the very beginning of the day, from Bart Hansen?
I did, yes. The very legendary Aces vs. Kings hand.
Wait, the guy who plays the founder and pro of Crush Live Poker?
He got crushed in live poker. Yeah. I always
Aces vs. Kings, like first hand, 300 big blinds in?
Yeah, it was bad by him. Very bad.
Bart, I love you. I'm sorry, Bart.
So I got, just overlapping the social side of poker. So the reason I knew of Bart for so long is John Aguirre.
Right.
Who I'm actually going to hang out with later today. He moved back out here. One of my good friends who I never get to see. So, it's so great how many people were in poker, left poker, came back to poker, and it's just a cycle. It's like, that's what I love about this industry is everyone who thinks they're out, you end up coming back.
When was the last time you stayed in a hotel in Vegas?
The World Series.
Okay.
The whole World Series, I stay on property.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
You don't stay with friends?
I've stayed at Frank's house for multiple years. I think it was like 16, 17, 18, 19. But once I was just like, as much as I love spending time there and hanging out with him, I like being on property because dinner breaks, I get more sleep, I don't have to worry about driving. If I want to drink during some events, it just simplifies my life. I get to focus on just poker. I remove as little as possible. When my family comes out here, my wife and kids stay at Frank's house.
Right.
So like we're super close. Our families are intertwined. His new kids are the same age as mine, and it's so great because one of the things I love about poker now is one of my close friends, Cliff Joseph. I talked to him. I'm like, how did you grind online?
He's one of the original legends. I mean, he like what did he staked how many winning poker
hundreds
players?
of people. So many people's career are owed to him. I was staked by him early in my career, like and we stayed close throughout. And I always say to him, I was like, I look at how many hours I played. I know you were there every night playing tournaments with me. I struggle when I'm at home playing cash games with my kids. How are you playing tournaments 12 hours a day while raising multiple kids who turned out amazingly successful and great kids? Like, it is so hard looking back on, and that generation that were 10 years older than me with families doing the same stuff we did.
Well, I think
for all those years.
I think a lot of those players back then really struggled with that balance. How do you do it? It's a question that I ask any successful poker player that has a family. And you're married, you've got 2 boys, right?
Yep.
7 and 9?
7 and 9, yeah. Me and my wife just had our 10-year anniversary a few months ago.
Yeah, and you're like a unicorn. I mean, you're the actor who didn't move to LA. You stayed in upstate New York, and you're making this work. How do you do it? How do you balance?
So I moved back. When me and my wife got married, we were planning on having family right away. I said, she got pregnant, the week we got married. And I was like, I want my kids to raise where my family is. We're moving to upstate New York. My wife was like, I lived in Florida time. She's like, I'm not going to fucking New York. It's too cold. I said, I will let you make every decision in our life except for 2 things: where kids go to school and where we live. Those are the only 2 things I want. You can make every other decision that is important in this family.
So you can name the kids?
I was a part of the naming the kids.
Okay.
That's a good story, by the way. That I'll get into in a second. But, I struggle. I like go away on the road and I'm just like, I want to play as much poker as I can. When I'm somewhere, I'm going to grind online. I'm going to play cash. I'm going to play tournaments. I'm going to put as many hours in as possible. So when I go home, I don't feel the push to play online and to grind as much. Like, I play a lot online currently, but I go through phases where I'll go a couple weeks I don't play, or a couple weeks where the games are good and I play a lot. And and then I'm just like, these are my go-to tournament stops. I want more bracelets. I'm going to go to the World Series. I'm going to do this. But it's amazing. I owe all the credit to my wife. She holds down the fort when I'm away, and she keeps me in line when I'm home. And it is so difficult to readjust every time I go away for a trip, especially a longer one, because the whole family routine has changed, their favorite food has changed, what they're doing, what they like to do. It's so hard to keep track of that stuff, but it's amazing. I love the, trial and error of that. Every time I come home, it's readjusting to what the kids have been up to and what my wife is experimenting with to get them to act the way she wants.
How hard is it for you to travel and go away from your kids? I mean, 7, 9-year-old boys. I have a 6 and a 10-year-old boy. It's a fun age. Those are really fun ages.
My kids, I remember talking to people when I got into poker. My family were talking about young age with math and some of the stuff I did. They're like, we knew how sharp you were, your brain. The bill would come out, we'd ask you what the tip was and the tax, and you just calculate that instantly. That was stuff I was doing at a super young age. Now, my sons are both going to be certified geniuses, but
obviously,
sorry to my oldest Evan, who's an amazing kid, but Chance, my youngest, he has impressed me so many times. When he went into kindergarten, like, he heard me doing mental math questions with Evan in the car throughout the time. Like, I love when in the car with him, just giving them math questions. We talk some things, word problems, whatever.
Right.
So
the math questions I give my kids are like, hey, what's 3 plus 3? And they're like, and you're like, are you doing calculus already with them?
Chance is doing division, negative numbers, multiplication, powers, all that stuff. I taught him a few square
Chance,
roots.
is the engineering on this bridge sound?
Yeah. So he goes into kindergarten and he starts telling his classmates how smart he is and stuff, and he started teaching them division and multiplication. His teacher, when we were in parent-teacher class, she's like, I've never had a kid come in here and try to teach the other kids math as much as him. It's amazing. Like, they're in Continental Math League. There's some other program that they're about to do. That's like a math and engineering competition that has all these things that a couple of friends of ours, their kids are also aspiring for academics and stuff, and we push them into it. And my kids love sports, and that's the best thing, is knowing how much we make learning a game for them and how competitive my kids are. And I'm just so excited. Like, I was advanced for many years of my schooling, and my kids have talked about wanting to skip grades to do this. I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you. because I don't want you socially and athletically to be that much younger than everyone, because that's going to hurt them too much. But I am going to push you. And if you want to do these math competitions on the side or do this and, push yourself, we will put you in extracurricular. We will find ways to.
I had to deal with that because, I mean, obviously I'm just an athletic phenom. So they kept wanting to push me up, but socially I wasn't there.
So your height just didn't push up enough.
Right.
Me and my now wife were dating. Like, we were probably like a month into our relationship.
How'd you guys meet?
At the Chad Brown Invitational down in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, rest in peace, Chad Brown.
Yes. She was dealing the final table. I was making fun of her for being old. Yeah, there's actually, you can find it on YouTube.
Wait, so this is another dealer, poker player love story, like Chance Corniff?
Yes.
Okay.
I ended up hanging out with her. Her boyfriend was a big fan of mine and wingman very hard for me. And then we started dating 2 years later. Shockingly enough,
what kind of boyfriend is that?
This is the loop of poker. Do you know where me and Ashley's first date was?
Where?
Frank Casella's house.
Wow.
She was out in Vegas on her way to Seattle for a wedding. Had a couple day layover here to hang out with people. She'd never been to Vegas. I get knocked out of the tournament. She says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm actually going to my friend Frank Casella's 4th of July party." She's like, "Can I come?" I was like, "Sure, whatever." There's gonna be like 500 poker players there. And so she comes in.
What year is this?
2012. Yeah, 2012. So she goes in. The first person I start chatting with is the one and only Jack Effel. And, I'm not introducing anyone. I'm not good at these social things. She's not my date. She's a friend of mine. I brought her to a party.
He's socially awkward. He's terrible at these things.
I'm really bad at some things. So Jack is there, and me and Jack are talking about an instance that happened at the World Series, and Ashley wanted to come deal the World Series at some point. So she introduced herself to Jack, and she goes, "Hi, I'm Ashley, and Shaun's an Ashley. Want to introduce me?" And Jack puts his arm around me and goes, "Not Shaun. We all love Shaun." I tell Jack all the time, great wingman. I meant to say this earlier, so rest in peace, Chad Brown. When he was on his deathbed, we had just had Evan. So I was able to send him a photo and say, "Thanks to you, I have a family and a son now," And we thought about naming him Chad, but, that was one of the names we discussed. But unfortunately, there were some Chads I don't like in poker.
Okay. That's fair.
But yeah, so I mean, it's been a crazy life. Looking back on how many things had to go right for me to end up where I am, how successful I am with the relationship I have, the healthy marriage, the healthy kids. I just owe that to, all the people I've been friends with have given me so much advice, that I've learned.
What's the best advice you've gotten when it comes to balancing poker and family?
I believe this was from Tim Pham down in Bahamas. He basically was telling stories about with his wife. He's like, telling the stories like, I tell my wife, if things are going good, she finds chips, cash, anything around the house, and she takes it and I don't notice it, keep it. So my wife has always had that policy. I have a good run or whatever. She has some stashes of cash, not stashes of cash, but like she has, in some bank accounts that I don't even know about, some stuff and safe deposit, whatever. I don't want to know about it. If I'm struggling and I need it, I'll go to her. But I would have no idea where some of this stuff is. And I love it that way. I think that's a good little bit of advice because you never know when things are going to go bad. You never know when the times are good. I talk about the game passing you by at some point. I want to, I've done a lot of investing, a lot of buying real estate, different things because I'm not going to poker. Eventually, poker's not going to be as profitable as it is. So,
is that a fear of yours? Or is it just, have you accepted it?
I am not Doyle Brunson. I'm not Billy Baxter. I will not be a winning poker player into my 80s. It's just a fact.
Why is that?
Because the game will be too advanced and you just can't stay sharp enough.
And how will you know? You said this was the toughest thing, and I agree. Because we are all results oriented and it's very difficult for us to understand and know when we are no longer a winning player. How will you know?
You will never know until it's too late. There's unless you somehow.
You just think you're running bad. You think, I was really good. I was really good 2 years ago, so I can't.
I ran to the top of his range. I had a great read, and I just got unlucky, and I just get in the key flip, and I lose. It's just you're never gonna know until you've lost so much that holy shit, like maybe I was the fish this whole time. Maybe these guys that I couldn't wait to play with it's reversed and they got better than me, or maybe this one thing I was doing, they figured out and exploited me, or my frequency is just off by enough where it just can't win.
I had a student that I was talking to for a while, and he was like, I was like, why were you playing at 5 a.m? I was like, why were you there for 14 hours? He's like, well, I was stuck, but the game was really, really good. And I just kind of like looked at him, just dead stare, and I was just like, the game was really good. It's because you, right? For them. Yeah, you brought up the story about money sitting around. When I first moved in, when I first started dating my wife, Molly, I'm living with Bart in West Hollywood, and my then girlfriend, now wife, sleeps over, and she's going to make breakfast one morning, and she's like looking at oven mitts, and there's just cash in the oven mitts. She's like, who the fuck lives this way? Who lives this way? And I was like, oh, I'm like, this is pretty common for poker players. I was like, this is just it.
Yeah, we don't cook, so we're not going to use the oven mitt.
Exactly. Thank you. Right. I was like, I don't know the last time we used the oven mitt. Exactly. We went off on a tangent earlier on. I brought up the Player of the Year, and we're going to Frank Casella's house, who won the 2010 Player of the Year at the World Series of Poker. You won the 2018. It certainly seems like this is something that's important to you. Is that true?
Yes. So when Frank won, we were close. The next year, Ben Lamb won, who were all super close, and they made fun of me for years. Shaun, you're supposed to be the tournament guy. You're supposed to be better than me at poker. Why have you not won this? So I had a few years I kind of went for it when it was much harder. And then in 17, I said, you know what? I'm going to win Player of the Year. I'm going to go for it. And I came close. I got like 4th or 5th that year. Went to Europe, bombed to Europe. If I had a good Europe, I could have won. And then 18, I had obviously a great year. Won 2 bracelets, bunch of final tables, bunch of scores. And then ever since then, I've been like, 2nd or 3rd multiple years in a row, or 4th.
What do you think about the format and the way the scoring goes?
I like it because I understand it well. I think there are definitely improvements that can be made, but it's never going to be perfect. There's no way you're going to come up with a formula that's fair with so many varied events, so many varied buy-ins, so much different field sizes. You can't weigh things equally because some people are going to think buy-in matters more. Some people are going to think field size matters more, and someone's just going to be frequency. Like there's 3 arguments, and there's logical arguments for all 3 of them. I mean, if you get 3rd place in a 10,000 person, millionaire maker, that's more impressive to me than getting 1st place in, 120 person 10K single draw. And, the frequency of that happening is much lower, but you also can't just have it based on pure field size, because then whoever goes deepest in the 2 biggest events is going to win. So,
I mean, I've heard arguments on both sides also in the sense that, when it's a 10,000 person tournament that lasts 4 days, you're only playing 8 players at a time.
Math is still math. Okay. Your percentage of winning and getting that result, your distribution, getting 3rd in a 10,000 person tournament, that's not going to happen very often in your career. I've probably only done that once or twice. And I've played hundreds of thousands of tournaments. Not all of them had that field size, but it's rare.
Yeah, so that's always the question I always wonder, because part of me thinks, well, if you don't play mixed games, you can't win Player of the Year. But also I'm thinking, well, you know what though? If you don't excel at mixed games, should you win Player of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, I always said I think there should be 2 separate leaderboards, overall, and no limit hold'em. And they did that one year, and there should be such a bigger prize pool. I've talked to the World Series and I've explained to them, and I'm like, you understand that if you put a $500,000 prize pool for Player of the Year, you'll get every big Bobby's Room guy, every big name to play every event. Do you know what an experience it is for the people in the $300 Salute to Warriors tournament to have myself or Negreanu at their table? You know what I mean? Something they've seen on TV 1,000 times.
I can tell you, my first World Series of poker, my very first World Series of poker, okay? I sat down, my second event, $1,500 no limit hold'em table, and Doyle Brunson was at my table. I mean, I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah, you feel like you're like, I'm an equal. We have the same 2 cards. We have the same chip stack.
I didn't feel equal. I didn't feel equal at all. But I still thought it was cool. I was like,
did you ask him for a photo? Oh, this was before photos. You couldn't even ask.
I didn't ask him for anything.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was pre-camera phones.
No, I had a camera phone. But it was like, I didn't ask him for anything. I just played poker with the guy. But it was just like, I played basketball with Michael Jordan. Yeah. right? I played golf with Tiger Woods. I mean, I get to play poker with Doyle Brunson.
I mean, I always love looking back at my times with Doyle and different things when he got to know me, and like he puts a smile on his face, starts asking me questions about tournaments, different things, talking about prop bets. Like, it was so cool to me. I think my favorite first like big pro interaction, I thought it just like I was like cool. I like made it at the time. I remember I was at LAPC. I'm sitting at a 10K. Phil Locke's at the table, and I like play some pots. Like, you're one. He's like, what's your name? You're one of those like online whiz kids, aren't you? I was like, I'm Shaun Deeb. He's like, you're Shaun Deeb, and I was like, Phil Locke, like, you know what I mean? The Unabomber is like pumped and like asking me questions and shit. Like, that was one of the coolest things. Is like the interaction is you become known and become a peer as opposed to just like a fan. And I think that conversion, if you do a large POY prize pool and build up the hype with TV and different things, and it's going to pay for itself. You get all these people to increase their volume, that's more rake. The numbers go up. If they did I wish I could show them the data that if you did a $500,000 or $1 million player of the year prize pool, you're going to make an extra $3 to $5 million in rake. And also your customers are going to have a better experience. Because of the fact that if everyone knows every event, you're getting the biggest names to play. The Brian Rass, the Ivies, all the Hall of Famers are going to grind all these low stakes tournaments to try to win Player of the Year. I
mean, Jack Effel was your wingman helping you out getting your wife. I mean, I feel like you've got a connection there.
It's not Jack's call, though.
No. It's definitely not his fault, but would he listen to you?
He's listened to me, and he's tried to raise the prize pool. And, you look at all the festivals that you do leaderboards, it motivates people to play. And you motivate people to play, that's great for everyone. Because guess what? If the best player is playing more tables and more games, their edge is lower versus the other people. I always laugh at people like, oh, we got to cap the tables these pros can play. If you're playing 40 tables and someone of similar equal skill is one tabling, who do you think has an edge on the table are together? Like, that's what I really always hated about the industry, like some of those thoughts throughout the years of restricting tables on players. Force them to play more tables.
Right.
Like, if
I have no chance if I'm playing you, and we're only playing one table. Yeah. But if you're playing 40, well, maybe not you, but
I'm just saying, like, you can handicap. Like, there's a ways to make it more difficult for them. If Phil Ivey's playing 1K no limit and he's multi-tabling 2 other tournaments, he's blinding out for a little bit. That money's going back in the ecosystem. They're not just crushing an ROI, and they're trying to increase their for me with Player of the Year, I'm doing minus EV plays in a lot of tournaments because I'm trying to increase my variance. So I either have a big stack or I go on to the next event. If Reg is about to close to something and I'm short in another tournament, I'm blasting off to go on the next one because my equity is so low for POI points.
People probably panic when they see you at day one. They're like, I can't believe I got Shaun Deeb at my table. That's the best thing ever.
I literally tell people in like the unlimited, oh, you're just gonna go all in every hand. That's good for you. If you know I'm not gonna fold king queen off for your 100 big blind shove in level 1 because it's a tournament where I can just rebuy 20 times and I'm going to just fire lots of bolts, I'm going to take the worst of it there. I'm okay taking the worst of it.
Right. But it's hard for,
I know people
it's hard for Joe, it's hard for a layman to just, I think they understand, but at the same time they're thinking listen, I came to Vegas with $12,000 total.
Yeah.
And I don't have 6 bullets for this.
Yeah, I think myself and Angela Jordanson, who I think everything she does poker is great, one of those people doing amazing things for the industry who aren't well known yet. She's a low stakes person. We had all the Twitter spaces pre-series, and we were talking about freeze outs and no freeze outs, and she was saying how it's so bad these low stakes things are unlimited re-entry and people can just gamble, and the Recs are not getting the experience they want, and they're getting knocked out by this person who just played bad. I'm like, people are going to take bad beats. We always talk about the minefields and all the old school terminology of poker. Like, that's just kind of part of it, and just embrace it. And I don't think Angela's wrong with her theory. I think there is a place for some of those freeze outs. But I think also that once you just tell people, be accustomed to it. Expect that you're going to be in for a couple bullets. Expect this. And they're going to come out with a proper bankroll as opposed to, I'm firing 1 bullet in this tournament. Like, expenses are so high. If you're playing, what I call the ATM tournaments, like sub 1K buy-ins, yeah, you can get the buy-in out of an ATM. So if you're doing some of those things, like your expenses, you're spending $1,000 on hotel and flights. Like, you should be playing a few $1,000s worth of buy-ins. You should be having lots of bullets. It shouldn't be traveling in where your expenses are 3x what your buy-in you're playing is.
It's amazing, when I think about different eras of poker, Doyle Brunson or Benny Binion.
By the way, this is the neighborhood Doyle lived in.
Is this
Did you not know that?
I did not. No, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, Doyle and Frank were very close friends.
That's amazing. That's great. I mean, Doyle's just a legend, and obviously a Hall of Famer, which is where I bring to you. When you look back at your career and what you leave behind, when you no longer can beat the game, as you've said, how important is it that you leave a legacy? I mean, is the Hall of Fame important to you?
Of course it is. I mean, it just feels like when my kids grow up and they see their dad's a professional poker player. So, okay, that's kind of a unique thing. Like, no, my dad's a Hall of Famer. Any sport, everyone knows how important Hall of Fame is for any industry. And the Poker Hall of Fame is so stupid how small it is currently because there's so many deserving people in there. We talked about Esai, there's so many people who are deserving who aren't in right now, too many to name. And there's so many of my generation of the online guys who are turning 40 soon or just, you know what I mean?
I don't know what they're going to do. I'm saying, you think about your generation.
It's insane.
Of friends that are all turning 40 soon.
Like, you think of like Jason Mercier, Ike Haxon, Jason Kuhn, there's, and some like Sergio Diaz. There's so many people who are deserving. Michael Adamo. There's so many names of amazing players who just belong in there. And then you talk about the industry people. Matt Savage, Esai Scheinberg, not in there. Norman Chad, Lon McCarron, not in there. Like, I know you're smirking at them, but they belong in there.
Oh no! Hey, wait. If you follow me on Twitter, I am Norman Chad and Lon McCarron absolutely belong in there. I don't know if they belong in there over who's getting in.
No, I don't.
When you only put one person in a year, it's impossible.
Yes.
But absolutely, Lon McCarron and Norman Chad belong in there.
I mean, these are the people that, why the people watching this video, all the people named influence you. You may not even realize it, but they did. And that's why we are fans of poker. That's why we are poker players. And that's why this industry is as healthy as it is. There are so many deserving people, and it's sad. It's amazing that I'm in the conversation. Some people think I'm guaranteed first ballot. That's fucking bullshit. There are so many people that and my career's not over. And I think the criteria is bad. I think the voting system is bad. If I do get in at some point in my career, I'm gonna push really hard to change things because I want deserving people to be in there. You think about the average Hall of Fames. How many people does the NFL or baseball put in per year?
Like
10?
I
5 or
think
10?
it's like 5, yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a point system, which is actually what I would love to get to as well.
So here's the thing. There's 5 of them a year. How many professional players are there per year doing that? 5,000, 10,000? Yeah. And they're letting 5 in a year. How many professional poker players are there?
No, yeah.
100,000? More? And we're putting in 1 a year. Think of that ratio. It is so absurd. One person out of hundreds of thousands of people who are professional poker players.
By the way, not only are you very popular among poker players, you're also very popular among Frank Casella's kids who are running out the door. So we're gonna have to cut this short. But we are at Frank Casella's. This was amazing. They have no idea Shaun Deeb is coming, by the way.
Yeah, surprise.
But like what do you say?
I'm his 10th kid. Yeah.
So, he has that many kids.
He's up 9.
That's insane.
Yeah, he loves kids.
Hey everybody, Shaun Deeb. Can we do this again?
Yes.
I'm going to convince my producer. I'm going to convince 888. We're going to go up to upstate New York.
Or you could just move to upstate New York and we can do this. We can do a regular thing. We can make this a regular segment.
I would love that. Okay,
and we can do our 888 wait up there.
I'm done.
We'll fly people into Albany and there we go. We got a perfect private gym for that.
I'm in. Let's go.